Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day for a neighbor. You see that water back there? That's where I'm about to go after this. What's good, gang? How we doing out there? Thank you for coming in, tuning in on this beautiful Tuesday. Today we're going to be reading from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. If you don't already have the YouVersion Bible app, I would highly suggest you download it. It's a really good one for just getting into daily rhythms of prayer and scripture. Today's verse was Romans chapter 12, verse 2. I probably should have opened to it before I began speaking with y'all, but that's where the beauty of video editing will come in. All right. Romans 12, another one of those powerful chapters where if you get a hold of it, you'll start to see things differently. Verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind." I like the way the Amplified version has it. It says, "Do not be conformed to this world or this age," i.e. fashioned after and adapted to its external superficial customs, but be transformed or changed by the entire renewal of your mind, its ideals, and its attitudes. If you don't know, Amplified version is kind of like a little bit more drawn out, if that makes sense. So the original Bible was obviously not in English. It was in Aramaic, Hebrew, and then later on into Greek. And so I have a study Bible that helps me look at the original words and find out what they meant to those people at that time. The NIV doesn't do a very good job of that. It's like kind of condensed for our understanding, but the Amplified uses more words, essentially, so that you can get a better idea of what the original text meant. But that's neither here nor there. Today I just wanted to talk about what it meant to renew your mind. It's a really powerful verse, because it says, don't be conformed, i.e. don't fit into, like you don't want to fit into things that don't fit you, right? If you wear some really tight shoes, you begin having some foot problems, right? So he's saying don't conform to the pattern of this world. What does that mean? So a pattern is something that repeats itself. It allows you to recognize certain trends. This world is run by the devil. I hope you know that. Like, this world is run by Satan. He said, devil run the playground, but God owns the building. That's what he was talking about. Ultimately, if we fit in to the patterns that Satan created, we are cutting ourselves off from the patterns that God created, which is what he talks about in the second half of that verses. But be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Right? What does it mean to be transformed? Like you can be reformed. Reformed is like incremental changes along the way. And then there's transformation, which is like wipe the slate clean. Boom. New mind. This is what he's talking about. I think it was Einstein that said a measure of intelligence is your ability to change your mind. And if that's the case, then what this verse is calling for is not that you become dogmatic or religious. It's asking that you become intelligent. It's literally saying, hey, change your mind. Understand that this is not it. There's something bigger and better for you. I literally created an entire, spiritual domain for you to rule over, and you're over here, playing this game of capitalism for what? Let me not come at any political systems. Everything in the world is decrepit, right? It's all rotten from the core because we decided that we could do it on our own. The goal should be to transform our minds. I don't want to get into a sermon, but how do we do that, right? There's different ways. You can study his word. Like, that's part of why I try to get into scripture daily. I need to think of things that are good. I think in another version, maybe 1 Corinthians says to think on things that are pure. And there's this idea that the more you behold something, the more you value it. So the more you are looking at, this degenerate activities on the internet, the more you'll kind of opt for that. Your brain chemistry will begin to see that as normal. But if you are rooting yourselves in timeless words of God and you are ruminating on his precepts, that leads to a completely different set of neural pathways, bro. And so for this to mean anything to you, you have to begin to think in new ways of how can I begin to let go of some of the patterns that I've previously saw as good. These things maybe served you in the past, got you to a certain level, and you're beginning to understand that, ultimately this thing can't serve the deepest hole in my heart. So I would advise you to just do a little bit of praying, man. Like, not everybody is geared for the prayer warrior type, I'm going out and I'm going to speak in tongues and I'm going to lay hands and I'm going to heal. But everybody can just acknowledge God's presence, Like, you can close your eyes and say, Lord, I don't know anything, and I need you to show yourself to me and to help me in this moment. I don't know. 10 seconds in the morning. Try to recalibrate yourself to him. That's what prayer is anyway. It's not like a wish list of stuff that you get. Some people think of it that way. Really, prayer is an attempt to calibrate our minds to the minds of Christ, to the mind of Christ. And when we do that effectively, we begin to act in different ways. We begin to desire different things. We begin to treat people differently. And ultimately, that's the goal of the Christian walk. It's not to be a moral, upstanding religious zealot. It's to recognize that we are completely enamored with this crazy system. But the more that we pull ourselves out of it, the more we begin to look like Christ. I'll cut it off there for now. Thanks again for listening. I am going to go outside and catch some of these sun rays. You guys take it easy. Much love to the gang. Peace.